Hello, everybody. This is Zerda with Zerda MTG, and I'm back at it again today with another historic deck tech. Today we will be playing Red-Green Ponza, Ponza being the archetype that aims to use land destruction as a tempo tool to buy itself time to land its game-winning threats. So, as for our ramp package, because 4-mana land destruction, which is all they give us anymore, is little bit too slow, we have cards like Explore, Wolfwillow Haven, and Mindstone. Now, there is an artifact similar to Wolfwillow Haven, in that it can become a 2/2 to attack, except it doesn't have to sacrifice itself to do so, and is a colorless creature, which you might think makes it better with Ugin, but I've found that on turn 5, being able to both play a ramp spell and also hold up, or not hold up, so much as cast either a Rubble Reading or a Storm's Wrath is just a little bit more valuable than the negligible 2/2. And this will be able to come in untapped, essentially if it were a rock, untapped, by putting it onto a land you didn't tap to cast it, whereas the other will always be tapped. In the end, I think it's very, very small. Arguments can be made for both, but I do believe Wolfwillow Haven does edge it out because of that. Just barely. Also, the 2/2 is very inconsequential in the grand scheme of things. We're trying to win with an Ugin, Golos activations, or just our opponent not having any resources. So it's not very common that we're going to need to do that. Mindstone and Explore are the other ramp spells of choice because both of them can draw us cards. Mindstone, in the late game when we no longer need it, just turns into another card, and Explore goes ahead and gives us that card right away. On to the 3-drops, we are only running 2 Anger of the Gods. This is kind of just a concession to Goblins and the Lurrus decks. Otherwise, I'd prefer 4 Storm's Wrath. We have enough ramp spells to just make it happen on turn 3 anyway. But say we miss, something goes awry, we need a turn 3 sweeper against Goblins no matter what. And against Lurrus, we need the Exile, or Lurrus decks, we need the Exile, so that's the reason for the split there. Storm's Wrath hitting Planeswalkers is incredibly relevant. Things like Narset don't much matter to us, but there are a number of Planeswalkers in the format that can be quite problematic, like Big Teferi if he starts marching up to Ultimate, and, well, you know, just walkers in general presenting a problem once they get down. Goblin Rune Blaster is our land destruction spell of choice. It only blows up non-basics, and that can occasionally be awkward, but providing a body to either block against more aggressive creature decks or to attack against Planeswalkers or just an empty board and try and get in that chip damage to win can be pretty big. It's not relevant too often as an attacker for life total, but it can pair up with an Ugin to make an impressive clock, and it is better than the next alternative, just because being able to block is incredibly relevant. Next, we have Rubble Reading. This is the best land destruction spell in the deck for normal use case. The Scry 2 is pretty big, destroys a land. Honestly, neither of these is exactly good, but they do fill the role that we need, and happening on turn 3 can prevent your opponent from making some big plays. 4 Storm's Wrath I've already gone over. 4 Golos Tireless Pilgrim. Now, we have a pretty small Golos package, but Golos is still pretty relevant. Normally, he'll be fetching up a Cascading Cataracts if it looks like we're going to be able to activate him, and our opponent doesn't have too many lands out. This way, we can make all 5 colors activate Golos' ability, and from there just start churning through our deck. Board wipes, card draw, land destruction, potentially Ugin, and that kind of a thing. Blast Zone is something we'll grab in case the opponent's board is kind of clogged up or they have a enchantment or an artifact we really need to deal with. In that case, Golos goes and finds Blast Zone, and then 2 turns is not exactly the fastest time for it, but we can also just draw it, and Blast Zone is just a good card in general, so that's why the Blast Zone is there. And then for Memorial to War, a land destruction spell that is secretly a land is pretty good, especially because it's fetchable with Golos. This is kind of something we do if our opponent's very low on lands already, and it doesn't look like we're going to need to do too much to win. We just go ahead and grab yet another land destruction spell off our Golos, and try and keep our opponent on as few lands as possible. And it's just kind of nice to be able to fetch up a land destruction spell with our Golos. Memorial to War is also pretty good if you're once you've started to stabilize, and it's helped you cast maybe your Wraths in the earlier turns, but you no longer need it, and then you can just help keep your opponent off colors or anything like that. And Memorial is just another land destruction spell because we need to have a critical mass of those. Moving on to our bigger spells, we have 2 Haphazard Bombardment. I'm kind of torn. Part of me wants to play the full 4, part of me wants to cut these entirely, but in all honesty, against the mid-range and control decks, this card is absolutely crucial because they can draw a considerable number of cards, and being able to blow up 3 permanents against them, most likely lands, but hey, it could be planeswalkers, is actually pretty relevant. And just having access to that is fairly important to us, even if it is a little bit slow. Next up is Star of Extinction. We have 2 copies. This is, once again, because of planeswalkers, and it's just kind of the best red board wipe. I'd considered Hour of Devastation, even though this does destroy a land. That's honestly just kind of a funny side effect, even though it fits the theme. What it really does is it just kills every creature, every planeswalker, and it gives us a fresh reset. And if our opponent, or if we've been doing our job right, blowing up lands, as we have been, then destroying the land could take them back off another color, and really put us in a much better position than it's put them, because, well, they just got wrathed and they lost a resource. So 2 Star of Extinction. Part of me wants to make these haphazard bombardments, part of me wants to make the bombardment Star of Extinctions, so I have split the difference. And then we have 3 copies of Ugin. The reason it isn't more is we do need to get to that 8 mana, but once we do, it isn't... once we do, it is one of the best things we can be doing in our deck. Just start wrathing every turn, potentially pinging things, pinging our opponent. Eventually, we will actually use the ult instead of, continuing to keep it around as a threat. Drawing another Ugin is absolutely huge, as is putting in a bunch of lands that could be land destruction spells, a Golos. But at the end of the day, this is the big payoff for this deck, and the reason that we're playing the land destruction. Because playing an Ugin if your opponent has potentially only 4 lands is a lot more powerful than if your opponent has the resources to actually keep up with you. And that's it for the deck. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all in the games.